who is your favourite MVP character of season 2 and why? And we're going to start with Medusa because she started something.
Other than my complete loyalty to Keffa, in season two, I have to go with Londo, I think, because he goes from this comedic, at times self-serving character to a guy who is really complex, morally ambiguous, massively morally ambiguous, but still has that, retains that sense of loyalty. You see it with when Erza arrives in Knives and he protects him, he protects his family afterwards. And you also see he's developing relationships as well. So you have his relationship with Via, his relationship with Jakar, which goes on one hell of a journey in season two, his relationship with Jakar, in honesty, where you have those moments of kind of like it's like a pseudo truce. And then you get the moments where they have a drink and Londo then watches the bombing of Nan and Jakar's speech and everything kind of just goes full circle again to where we were in season one. And it's like we kind of feel like we've got progress between them. Then Morden comes on the scene. Reefer obviously wants more power, so drags Londo into that situation. Then you've got the Emperor that kind of then pulls Londo in different directions. And then you've got Erza who kind of comes in, kind of like that person who tried to drag Londo back to who he was before he encountered Morden. And it doesn't quite work. And he still ends up finding himself falling down this dark path. And it's interesting to see how, like we get those elements through season two where we see Londo's clothes really start to change and they become darker from where they were originally. And it's just his development as a character probably just outshines everybody else's for me in this season, to be fair.
Mm. Clara, do you have a different one or same?
No, I mean I agree with Medusa. Londo's
Mm.
incredibly important in season two. I think for me though, I don't know if am I allowed to do this? I would choose one of the big main characters. I guess the guy who's just newly been introduced. I would say Sheridan. I think season two really is a character development season for Sheridan. I'm not
Mm.
saying he doesn't develop in later seasons, but there's a quite a speedy level of change that he goes through in season two from being this like war hero, um, this battle experienced captain of a ship or commander of a ship to basically becoming a leader of a community, a diplomat, uh, having to deal with complex, difficult situations that are quite different than you would have to deal with as a captain or a commander of a ship in a war. And or in the military, it's a very different kind of role. He's almost like like a sort of local politician in a way, like the leader of a council, or well, he is the leader of the sort of diplomatic council, and in charge of the station, the logistics of the station, a lot of which he obviously tries to farm out to Ivanova, which I mean, who can blame him, to be honest? But and then also just I think sort of understanding that things are shades of grey, that things are more complicated. When he starts, he's very gung ho. He has an idea of what's right and what's wrong, and then as the series goes on, he sort of questions himself. He questions the things around him. Even with Kosh, he starts to question reality and you know the nature of magic and the nature of science and just the future and fate and everything. So I think at the end of season two, he's quite a different person than he was at the beginning of season two. He's got a different role, and it's good for him that it's good for everybody really, I guess, in the show that he embraces that role,
Mm.
um, and chooses to go forward in becoming a very important person in the war against the shadows. But he changes a lot, and he also has to confront his own prejudices against the Minbari as well. And I was very sad to see Sinclair go. Obviously, when I first watched this as a young teenager, I actually cried. At the end of season one, I was like, everything's changing. Um, but I do feel like Sheridan's quite a different person than Sinclair, and so it doesn't feel like a replacement to me. It feels like another good character that they added
Mm.
to the series.
Yeah, because of the very nature of what season 2 had to do anyway. I won't go too into this because question 6 will probably get a lot into this, but by the very nature of what the show had to do to introduce Sheridan, I think they do a very organic. good job of implementing him to the series. Zach, your MVP of season 2 and why?
Well, Medusa already went on a great explanation of this, but I'm going to pick Londo. I think so many things you said so eloquently already, but like he was this. I mean, way back, right? When he first in season 1, he's like this comic relief guy, and then he gets a little bit like, you get to see more layers of him. Like all the characters, as you peel back, they become more dimensional, not less dimensional. Like a lot of shows, characters become less dimensional as they progress. In Babylon 5, they get more dimensional, which is so fantastic. But he's dealing with Morden. Like you understand his motivations. Like from the beginning, he's like, I just want glory. I just want us to be the way it was, and then he just goes into this villainous path, and all his interactions just make him like he loses more and more of his soul, over the course of the series. And just to see this season in particular, like where he starts, where he finishes, it's and then this can expand to the whole series, obviously, but especially this season is probably there's still enough of that fun season 1 Londo at the beginning, and you still like him, and you still and he's doing horrible things, and you kind of understand the moral ambiguity, the grayness, the shades of gray of it all is so there, and just probably one of the best, probably the best character on the show, honestly, of the whole show. And then so it's so hard because all the characters are so great, but yeah, I think for where he started to where he finished, to even them where he goes from here, based off what the decisions he makes this season, you got to go with Londo, I think.
It's incredible to have to write a character and perform a character who is doing such dark, heinous things, yet you still root for him or feel pity for him. It's incredibly clever what they did with Londo. Matt, your MVP of season 2 and why?
Well, as you may have a slight hint, it's going to be a non-character by my non-fanboydom. So yeah, I'm 100% about them. I love them. I think they're the most fascinating species in the show. So I'm gonna have to say Natov. Just kidding. It's Jakar. It's always Jakar. As the great man himself said, life is divided between moments of transition and moments of revelation. And I think that we got a lot of revelation out of this character this season. So after Quadrant 37 has destroyed the end of season 1, Jakar knows in his blood that there's something else going on behind the scenes, and we start the series with him actually out there looking for the shadows. He's the first person who doesn't already know or doesn't kind of learn about it, who's actively out there on this mission and is making headway. He just makes the mistake of telling Londo, so when they send the ship to Zahadum, they're ready for them and destroy it. He draws together what he's seen in the book of Jaquan and the legends of the League. He starts to build this dossier. He's learning. There's of course, the fantastic episode where Emperor Term arrives, and you see how much he's grown from being the boo-hiss villain in season 1, sort of behind the scenes working at evil machinations, into this maturing character, this incredible character. He puts the pieces together. And then by the time of the Long Twilight Struggle, he figures out that is going to be an absolute disaster for me. He warns Just-Den unfortunately doesn't listen to him. Jakar is a Cassandra figure, I think. And that speech, the no dictator, no invader can hold an imprisoned population by force of arms forever, is one of the most powerful speeches on the entire show. And it helps to prove to everybody, basically, that there's more to the Narn than meets the eye. And although that they're defeated, they're not broken. So he transforms then into Citizen Jakar. And he is set up by his experiences from season 2, where he has grown and learned so much, to become this resistance leader and the person who is able to put the first victory against the shadows on the table for the Alliance by what he does in season 3. I just think there's a huge amount of growth there. And although we have Minbari characters who know what's out there, and we have Kefir, and I'm going to say I am a slight Kefir stan. I appreciate he's not the best character, but I was I was a teenager when I first saw this show, and I just thought he was cool. I was like, oh, cool, I like this pilot character. Oh, he's dead. But yeah, Jakar was figuring it all out on his own with limited resources in the dark, and yeah, just give it to my boy for that.
I'll never be able to forgive the writers for putting Kefir having drinks with senior staff because it's just wrong. It just doesn't happen.
I just think he was so cool.
A
He was
mere
the
pilot
punchy.
cannot have drinks with the command staff. That's just not on.
He was a personality hire, Luke. That was the thing. Everybody liked him so much.
Oh dear, brilliant. PJ, your MVP.
I mean, it's all been taken. I thought Sheridan,
Yeah.
no, that's been done. Londo, Shakar, Kefir. So I'm going to go JMS because I've got nowhere else to go. But the man's writing steps up so much in this series, and to plot it all out and develop it the way he has from season one, and what he has to deal with characters coming and going as well. Obviously, the Sinclair Sheridan handover, and yeah, I just think it's hard to say anything else about any of the specific characters, but the way JMS handles the whole thing and not only carries on from season one, improves what they were doing in season one, and then also seeds what's coming in seasons 3 and 4. It's masterfully done in terms of this kind of serialized event television, which I don't think it gets enough credit for. People don't really remember that Babylon 5 is what started what Netflix now try and do with everything and fail with most things because their pacing is off. But JMS knows when to seed something, when to have a big moment, when to pull back and just have a standalone-ish episode. And so, yeah, I'm going to cheat and say JMS because mine were all stolen and I have no more notes on this bit.
Cheating accepted. That's fine. Baz.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And I don't think it's a cheat at all to say JMS because JMS is the genius that makes this show. It would not exist without him and his genius mind and his genius writing. I think everyone's probably covered the main ones, which is, I think, Londo and Sheridan and Jakar. So I'm going to go some sort of subsets of those. I'm going to talk about Sheridan, but really about Sheridan and Delenn and Sheridan and whatever. It's slightly cheaty doing two, but I think Sheridan really helps to grow both those characters. And this is why I think he's the MVP as well. Not only stepping in and replacing Sinclair and do it masterfully as well, but the way I love his relationship with Ivanova in season 2. I think that for me is one of the MVPs of the season because Ivanova was wonderful in the first season, but maybe outside of TKO, a lot of it she was very much stoic, almost cliche, hard-nosed Russian with just amazing lines. And Claudia Christian always delivered those lines brilliantly. But she was very stoic in her approach. She softens and warms and becomes much more as a dimensional character in season 2. I think a lot of that is through her relationship with Sheridan. So I love that brother-sister relationship of those. And that, for me, is one of the MVPs of the season. And on the flip side, because it's all about Sheridan, is the stuff with Delenn. And Delenn herself, it kind of is obviously physically changes in this season 2. But I love just the pacing of that relationship as well. When you get to moments like say why Call Me John in Confessions and Lamentations and the stuff that follows there, that relationship feels earned because of how it's set up over the course of the season as well. So I'm sort of saying Sheridan, but I'm saying that Sheridan helps grow Ivanova and Delenn in some ways as well.
Yeah, good answer. My MVP is Michael Beck as Abel Horn for the worst performance in the entire season.
Right. I'm now looking for a new host on the podcast if anyone wants to join me.
No, Baz, I think Luke should stay and you should go after that answer, to be honest.
I think we could probably get Abel Horn, right? I don't think he's doing anything.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, let's get Michael back on the podcast. No, I mean, not to reiterate what everyone says, but I think Sheridan, just by the nature of what season 2 has to do, and getting Sheridan from points of departure to the fall of night, as Zach said, he's a very different man by the end of the season. I mean, everyone's a different person, really, by the end of the season. But yeah, Sheridan for me, because of the relationships that you mentioned, Baz, because his relationship with Delenn and with Ivanova, and also with Garibaldi, because Garibaldi is having to face the fact that he has got a commander that he doesn't know, he doesn't trust. So that relationship really builds up nicely as well. And they benefit off each other. So yeah, I think Sheridan, I mean, when we get to seasons 4 and 4, and 5, or even 3, I think Londo and Jakar will probably rise up as MVP for me. But for this season, it's Sheridan, I think.